Evening. It is 5:01 p.m. in stereo. I'm Rob Watton, Chair of the Public Safety Committee meeting and Committee of the Whole. And we'll initiate with doing the roll call. Present this evening, Council members Kara Christensen and Council member Dr. Kat Cotton. Mayor Ross, Mr. Boutte, sitting in for the city administrator.
Yeah, it's gonna
Welcome.
be a fun
Welcome.
Thank you.
And Clerk
Thank you,
Dean and Chief Bailey, and Chief Lynch. And on IT, Jimmy. It's almost like the Tonight Show on keyboard. All right. First order of business is to approve the agenda. Do I have a motion and a second?
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Cotton, second by Councilmember Christensen. Any changes to tonight or additions? It's a hefty agenda. All right. Hearing none, we'll accept the agenda as presented. And we will move into public comments. Any member of the public is invited to come in person to make comments. I see no one in the council chambers, but in lieu of that, you can always send your comments over to the clerk. And Clerk Dean will make sure that those are passed along to the committee. So with that, I close tonight's public comments, and the next order of business is approval of the minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
So moved. Second.
Moved by Councilmember Cotton, second by Councilmember Christensen. Any discussion or changes? Hearing none, we will approve the minutes of November 4th, 2024 as approved. Next, I will call on our police chief, Brian Lynch, for the agenda bill. Let me pull it up here. This is the Snoqualmie Police Department use of the Issaquah Jail as their primary booking location for all misdemeanor arrests. The Issaquah Jail is one of 4 current city inmate housing contracts. The others being Score Jail, the King County Jail, and long-term housing at City of Sunnyside. So with that intro, I will let you take over.
Okay. Well, this has been a common theme with me in standing up here in front of you guys talking about jails. And my goal is by the end of this meeting that you guys are fully experts on how jails work and how much they cost. So at the end of October, we received notice from the Issaquah Jail that they were going to be raising their rates. Issaquah Jail is our primary first choice in booking misdemeanors charges. We currently have 5 guaranteed beds, and we have for the past few years. The Issaquah Jail has not raised their rates in some time. They were the only ones out of the jails that we use that don't do a yearly rate hike. But we got one this time, and to be honest, it is not small. Right now, for our guaranteed beds, we're paying $115. And how the guaranteed beds work, and this answers one of Councilmember Cotton's questions that she sent in. We have 5 guaranteed beds. We're charged $115 a day for each of those beds for 5 beds. If we hit the mark at 5, that's great. But most of the time we don't hit the mark. We're either below or we're slightly above. But even if the beds are not used, we're getting charged for $115 a day. And the non-guaranteed rates, if we go over the 5 beds, then the higher rate kicks in. And the higher rate right now that we get charged is $147 a day. So $115.50 for the guaranteed rate, and 147 for the non-guaranteed rate. Well, in 2025, the proposed rates are going to increase. The guaranteed spaces are going up to $150 a day, which is approximately a 29% increase over what we've been paying. The non-guaranteed space will jump from 147 up to $200. That's a 36% jump. And you can see that in the boxes that have what our current rates are as of today, we've already discussed King County, we've discussed SCORE with their rates for 2025, but these are as they sit right now for the end of 2024. Moving up to a $200 a day is only $4.97 cheaper than SCORE. And so that's a big jump. This is going to cause a little bit of a recalculation in the budget because we budgeted for the rates that we thought we were going to get at a 5% increase over time. So we've already budgeted for the $260,000 in Issaquah jail fees for 2025 and $275,000 for 2026. And when we calculate the amount that we're going to be going up, it's going to roughly over the biennium. It's going up to where we're going to need to come up with $160,000. And that's basically the jump for the 2 years. To answer further questions, and I apologize because this is, it's not the prettiest presentation, but I did not have time today. It was an extremely busy day, and I just got this data from the jail over the weekend. So I'll pass these out. These are starting in January of 2024 calendar days. I'm a very visual guy, so I have to see it. Just numbers don't work for me. So you'll see when I hand this out, they have blue dots. That's the person. So every day, this is how many inmates we had in this jail.
So Chief, just for context too, this is the Snoqualmie portion. North Bend also has dedicated beds, correct?
Yes, they have 5 as well.
Okay. Would there be an opportunity for each of us to have 4.5?
I don't think it would work for North Bend.
Okay.
North Bend, I'm actually going to be exploring the possibility of raising the beds for them because they are consistently over a lot more than we are. So you can see on here, the blue dots are actual people. We have 5 beds, and every time you see a pink mark on the date, that's a day that we were over. So in January, we're over 22 days and we averaged 6.3. That was the worst month so far this year. And you look as we go, there was only 1 day in February, none in March or in April. And then we had some again in May, where we had 16 days over. The total is 47 days that we've been over. And this is through November 15th, so 320 days. So 47 of those days we were over. And Councilmember Cotton, to answer your question about the high for it's 8. So we've hit 8, so 3 over several times this year. But in contrast to the North Bend, I haven't gone through that data for the whole entire year. I've only been able to get through the last 2 months of that data. We received this data from the Issaquah jail with names of inmates and date ranges and how many days. So now I got to go through and make that data usable for me so I can understand it and see. And this is what I came up with last minute today, because I wanted you guys to be able to see how we're using those beds. I believe that we need to stay at 5 at least for 2025 to get to a little bit more hard data to see if we can go down. We have been moving people out of Issaquah since this time last year when we had the ILA signed with Sunnyside. So those numbers go down, not having the long-term people at Issaquah. If we didn't have that, of course, our numbers would be higher and we'd probably be closer to 5 most of the time. So I'm hesitant to go down on our beds right now. In the agenda bill, I stated that we're in talks with the Kirkland Police Department and the Yakima County Sheriff's Department for the use of their jails. We can also add Puyallup and we could add Enumclaw on there. And I've been in contact with both of those departments last week, and they are interested in getting ILAs, which will be flat fees, no guaranteed beds. We just use them as we need them. And I think having those spread around the county at cheaper rates would help with the overage. So you want to take a question?
Councilmember Christensen.
Thank you. So Chief Lynch, as you're speaking with the other jails, are you looking primarily for the folks that are the longer term, or are you focusing on, I guess, the time in Issaquah for when they're actually going into court and that type of thing, as opposed to when they're doing their full sentence?
Yeah, so
So that we don't have to
we-
deal with transportation.
we
back
put
and forth.
new bookings go to Issaquah
Mhm.
most of the time.
Yeah.
Unless there's a medical issue, unless there's a psychiatric issue that the Issaquah jail refuses to take, then we have to go to SCORE jail. And in the off chance that they deny us, then we ought to go to King County, and then we're paying the high rates. What we would be seeing if we didn't have Sunnyside, and Yakima is going to be another tool. I believe I'm going over on the 5th of December to tour that jail and hopefully come back with a report to you saying we need to get this ILA signed. They will take females. Sunnyside will not. So they're staying in Issaquah from the time they're arrested. If they don't bail out, if the judge doesn't PR them and let them go on their personal recognizance, they stay in jail until their case is adjudicated. Once they are sentenced, if it is worth sending them out, more than a couple of weeks of time, we will contact Sunnyside. They'll come pick up for us and they'll do their remainder of their jail there. And going through this data today, there were a lot of people that were sentenced and for some reason couldn't go to Sunnyside. Sunnyside has been closed for like the last month for us because they're at capacity. It's just one of those times, it's just that season that they don't have any beds for us. So we're hoping to get cheaper long-term to go along with Sunnyside at Yakima, and especially to put female inmates. I hope that answered your question.
It does, thank you.
Okay.
Councilmember Cotton.
One more question, sorry.
Okay.
And I realize we're not footing the bill for North Bend's beds, but that sounds like there's an issue there. If we have like extra of our guaranteed beds and you're taking some North Bend folks down there and they're over that capacity, are you able to use our guaranteed beds from Snoqualmie?
No, we are not.
Oh,
No, they're dedicated per city and they're billed accordingly.
okay, that kind of comes under that subcontracting kind of stuff they were talking about. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. And to answer another question that you had sent in on the email, what's the maximum number of inmates that the Issaquah jail can hold daily? It's 72.
Oh,
So they do contract with other agencies besides us in North Bend. They have a contract with Duval. They have, I believe they still have a federal contract where, DOC is putting people in there to serve out little bit chunks of time for not checking in with their PO. Instead of sending them to prison, they go there. So they've got 72 total beds though.
So Chief, remind me, when did the Sunnyside contract take effect?
December of last year.
So we've got a full year of,
Yeah.
of
Yep.
utilizing them.
Yeah. And so far it's been successful.
What are the downside if we said, hey, we're only going to contract for 4 or, January 1st? What happens at that point with
For 4 beds. that what you
4
said?
beds, right?
If we go down a bed, we run the risk of having to pay an additional $200 if we go over that. And you can see that we went over 47 times. So it's, it would just be a monetary hit to our budget.
The other question to that, would there be a circumstance where there simply aren't beds because we don't have dedicated beds at that point where there is no place?
If it is a mandatory arrest and booking, which are domestic violence assaults, second time DUI in the last 7 years,
Mhm.
RCW says we have to book those. King County will take them, but we're going to pay for it.
Okay.
Yeah. In the meantime, we're usually, and these numbers could be lower for this past year because last year, this time I put out a directive saying that we were only going to book mandatory arrests. That's something that now having this data, we could probably come up with a way of having the officers call in to find out how many of our beds are taken if they make an arrest. And if it's below, then we'll give permission to book them since we're already paying for that. I know that it would make the officers happy because they're repeat offenders. We deal with those a lot and we're just giving a ticket and a court date, which most of them don't show up for. So I know that they would be in support of that. I don't think there's a lack of business that we could fill the 5, but we've been trying to keep that down as much as possible and not go over.
So the next question is, this contract is for a year? Or is it perpetual until we decide we're not?
Yeah, it
Involved.
basically you sign for the first year and then it automatically renews unless there's any changes to it like this one. We haven't had to bring an Issaquah contract to you within the last 4 or 5 years, I believe.
Okay. All right. Councilmember Christensen.
I was just going to point out that we also do, under the terms of the contract, we can adjust the number of beds we would like if you give 90 days notice. So there is some
90 days.
flexibility within
Okay.
the terms of the contract as well.
Okay, that's good. So at this point, I guess the decision is up to the committee if we move forward with it. Is there any objection to that? And we'll put it on the regular agenda item for discussion. We could put it on consent, but it is a
I would be
contract.
comfortable with consent at this point. They are our primary service provider and we've had them for a number of years. They're looking at the cost differentials to their other contracts. I don't know whether those would be feasible without
Okay.
putting a much bigger burden.
Okay, so consent agenda?
I'm comfortable with that.
Okay, all right.
The chair has concerns.
Yeah, no, then with that, we will put it on the consent agenda.
I hope the dots
other-
helped you. I worked on that for like 2 hours.
Did you do?
Just
that?
some
It is actually- it is
comments
helpful.
for council's edification, if you allow me.
Yes.
So budget right now is going through, or Issaquah is going through a budget process in which they are having to make certain reductions to their budget overall pretty substantially. One of the proposed solutions for how to solve their structural challenges is to potentially look at fee increases across all services that they provide to, their fellow colleagues such as us here at the city of Snoqualmie. So the Issaquah jail is not surprising, but also, what?
I was like, so we need to sign it fast.
Well, I mean, it's,
Your
so
minds.
have they gone through a comprehensive fee study to figure out what the rate should be? It's hard to say that that's exactly what they've done when it's $150 flat for guaranteed bed space and $200 for non-guaranteed bed space. But I want to also bring up to council here that this is just one of the services that we receive from the city of Issaquah. There's also court services that we also purchase from Issaquah, as well as dispatch services for police too. So don't be surprised if you see potential other increases coming from the city of Issaquah that will necessitate our further discussion here.
Didn't we already sign Norcom?
What was that?
Didn't we already sign Norcoms?
This.
We used them for a while in 2020 when the Issaquah dispatch couldn't be, they couldn't staff their dispatch center. So we were with them for like 6 months. But that's also something that we have spoke about. And we've done the first phone call to Norcom just to see if it would even be compatible, what the price is. Is it the same or higher or cheaper? So we're looking at all the options.
Very well. All right. Thank you, Chief. Move on to a few discussion items. First of all, the fire quarterly accreditation report, Chief Bailey.
Good evening. Just share the screen here. Hey, all right. So as this is included in your packet, I just wanted to highlight a few things. I didn't want to take up too much time because we had some other things we needed to discuss. But there are a few things that I wanted to point out that were a little different this time, or that were things of note that I thought you'd want to get some extra background on. First of all, I wanted to talk about our incidents this year. I know there's a lot of lines on there, but I think really what I wanted to point out is kind of where we're on track for this year. We slide down just a little bit there. We have the incidences per month and then incidences per year. You can see that we finished last year at 1572. The year before that was the most ever at 1611. Although this says we were at 1272 at the end of this report, I just wanted to point out for your information right now, currently we're at 1485 here in November. So if you look at that based on our projections, we're probably going to be over, this year will probably be our highest year call wise. Just, based on looking at, we have at least 100 per month, and we're already at 1472 and we still have a month and a half to go. So I'm guessing we're going to be over 1600, but it really just kind of depends. As you can see in the spikes there, whether we have a big winter storm or something like that, always will kind of cover us up a little bit, but we are on track to probably have the busiest year we've had so far. Next, I just wanted to point out where we are on, not having our touch screens anymore. You can see the type of calls that were going on again this year. It's stayed pretty similar. We are seeing a little bit of a decrease in EMS type calls and an increase in our good intent calls. What those calls include are canceled, dispatched and canceled en route, which we've seen more of those of an increase due to going more toward North Bend's. A lot of those calls do get canceled once North Bend comes available. So I think that's why we're seeing a little bit higher in the good intent calls. That's just the category that dispatched and canceled en route is lumped into. So we're seeing a little bit higher in there. And then also if you look there at our mutual aid given and received, again, just as like we have the rest of this year, we're just a little bit down in given and just a little bit up in aid received. So that means that we've had to call for help a little bit more than we have in the past, but really it's not a big change, a couple percentage points. One thing I did add last report, and I wanted to show you again, was we added these charts for mutual aid given and received, so you can get a little bit clearer picture of where we're going. As you can see, obviously going into East Side is more prevalent. Has stayed pretty across the 3 quarters this year, stayed pretty close to each other in regards to how often we're going there. But that's a snapshot of that. Other would just happen to be, maybe if we go to Bellevue, or up to the pass or something like that. That's where the other category would be. And then mutual aid received, this is the departments that are coming in and helping us. Again, stayed pretty kind of consistent, although Fall City came into the city less than they did in some of the quarters before. And just a reminder, the large incidences, that's not a different total. That just kind of lets you know, those are more reserved for when we get 3, 4, 5 different instances of units coming in. So I just kind of wanted to point that out a little bit separately. So you're thinking those are the big calls where we really need the help. The other ones are probably 1 or 2 units coming in from the other agencies.
I do have a comment on that. I wonder if you only have the totals for quarter 1 and 2. Doesn't seem like the third quarter.
Did I forget to total something up?
I think all of them.
No matter how many times you stare at something, they always forget. I will double check that and make sure. Yeah, it looks like I didn't total. It's supposed to total up automatically, and I'll fix that before it goes to the full council. Apologize for that. It's set to do it automatically when I add the numbers in, and this time it didn't do it for me. I will make sure I get that fixed. Apologize for that.
Just wanted to make sure the mayor was awake.
No.
That's
Oh,
right.
it's-
The rest of us got it. No, just.
It looks like
Just kidding.
the next one, these next tables did, just not that first one. So I did add a new section after our talks at the last quarterly report. I added a section on transports by Snoqualmie. So this shows you how many times that we had transports out of the city of Snoqualmie. And then below it says the hospitals. And then when it says east side area, that means generally speaking, we transported from one of their patients, one of their calls, from one of those mutual aid calls we went on. And although it's available for us to charge a Fall City patient if we have them, we just don't have many transports out of there just due to our low call volume of going to Fall City. And then I also threw in there too, because it's included in the monthly reports. This is just capturing it, just gives you a snapshot of where we're going on our transports. Snoqualmie Valley, Swedish Issaquah, pretty similar. And you can see there, very rarely do we head out to Overlake. Other hospitals could be, I think that one is, we went over to Valley Regional or Valley Medical over in Renton. That was that one. But we try to stay in the valley as much as we can in regards to the hospital here at Snoqualmie and Swedish. We try not to go to Overlake if we can help it, just because it's a longer transport and takes our unit out of service more. But there are times where we do have to, in the patient's best interest, we have to transport to Overlake. But those are the instances where we do try to reach out and get a private ambulance company. If they need to go further than Swedish Issaquah, we try to get a private or out to some of the other areas. But really, it's up to the patient's wishes. We're going to do what the patient wants to do. The next section I just wanted to hit on. We had a section, as always, we have a section there that talks about our fire inspections. And just wanted to show you what we've done for the quarter. We did talk about last time, I believe we talked about it in regards to the annual report. Councilmember Watton, you brought up some of the flyers and things like that we could hand out to the community to let them know about our schedule for inspections, things that they could do on their own in the meantime. And I just wanted to let you know, I think I had talked to you about it, but just to let the rest of the group know, is that's something planned for 2025. I spoke with Captain Fouts, who is our program lead on the inspections, and that's something he already been planning on and is in works. So you'll probably see that starting to be rolled out in 2025, a leaflet and a flyer to go out to all the businesses, just kind of giving them some in-between information of things that they need to look out for, things they can work on in between their inspections, because we did change that inspection cycle from every year to 1, 2, or 3 years, depending on the type of occupancy they are. So that is in the works for next year.
And the little gremlin got a hold of third quarter again on that one.
We're going to blame technology on this one. The last one I wanted to show you is just that we didn't have any fires for fire loss. We did not have any in this third quarter. We did not have any fires in the city, any car fires or building fires. Although we still, just because of the one we had back in April, You know, our total for the year property saved isn't really great, but that's due to the fire we had downtown here in April. So, but the good news is we haven't had any fires since then, so we'll stick to that. So, again, I will make sure that those are corrected. I apologize for those numbers. Those totals didn't follow through on the correct copy. We'll get that corrected before it goes to the full council next week. I'll get it fixed tomorrow. Is there any other questions I can entertain on the accreditation report?
Perfect. Good catch, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay.
Got some updates too.
Yes, I put together a list of, you know, as I wasn't here last meeting, I put together a list of some things that you were asking for. But if there's anything else that I don't hit on, let me know and I can try and fill in the blanks. So just go down the list here. The strategic plan. We did complete the strategic plan with the company. We got the edits back to us as a group. The group that worked on the fire department sat down and made our edits, and those are due back to the company on Monday. So they're going to get our edits back. Then they're going to make a final copy. It's going to come to the city. I was hoping to get that done by the end of the year, but just because we only have one council meeting left, and that's probably one that can wait, I'm guessing that we're going to bring that forward in January. We'll probably hold off on that one in January for the strategic plan. But it's on track. It's moving forward. And I think it was a really good process that we had. We had a really good group there, and it was a 3-day. We had the vendor on site for 3 days working through that. So pretty proud of that plan, and hopefully we'll get that out to you as soon as we can and look toward January for approval. The next one I wanted to update you on was the CEMP. I know we've talked about it. I've been working on it. I've been working on it with the vendor. They've been a little less responsive than I've liked in the last couple of weeks, so I'm still working on them because we do need to try and get that one needs to get finished by the end of the year, just because the extension that we got from Washington State last year was up at the end of this year. So I'm still hoping to get that one to the December 9th council meeting. That's still the plan right now. I'm just waiting. It's gone through the edits. It's gone to the state. The state's provided their edits back. And I'm just waiting for the vendor to incorporate those edits into it so that I had a finished copy to bring back to show the group.
Remind me, what's that part again?
That's the community emergency. It's the emergency management plan, community emergency management plan. So it basically talks about, it's the broad strokes of how we're going to respond in emergency. And then it's also a requirement for the state for our grant funding that we have one on file. Some of our EMPG funds that I talked about a meeting or two ago, it requires us to have one of those plans. So it needed a lot of update just because a lot of the changes that we've had in the city over the last couple of years. So we got the base of it. We're just waiting for those final edits. And then the goal is next year, we're really going to hit hard on practicing it with the city, do some quarterly trainings in regards to the EOC, standing up the EOC and doing some real life practice scenarios with the new staff that we have on board.
Okay. Is there a hard deadline to have that done?
Right now, it's the end of the year. It's the end of December. I reached out again today to the vendor. My next step tomorrow is I'm going to reach out to the state just to talk to them about where we're at and see if, you know, what they have any suggestions if we don't have it back from the vendor yet. But we're still working through that one. I've been on them, and it's just a matter of a time crunch on their end. And especially because it was, you know, it was supposed to be done in 2023. It got extended to 24. So because of that, it kind of got moved out on their work plan. So we're just kind of working together, but we still haven't, although it is something that we paid for, the final bill hasn't been paid. So we do have that we're still working on, but.
And it does not require council approval.
It requires council's adoption, but it doesn't require approval in regards to the content of it is pretty, I wouldn't say generic, but a lot of it's boilerplate language, and then there's area that are covered specifically by Snoqualmie. So it does need to be adopted by council, but I don't think that there's anything that really is going to be of concern that you would need to change or anything. It's more, you know, bringing forward and officially adopting it as the city's plan.
Okay, Any questions? Okay, thank you.
The next one is a new firefighter. So I just wanted to give you a brief update where we're at. We did have 2 firefighters that started back at the beginning of November, and those were filling 2 empty spots that we had. They're doing great. One of them came from Boeing. The other one came from Pasco. Both of them are working days right now. We're real happy with them. We're actually going to be coming in front of council, not this meeting. Actually, it is going to be this following meeting. We're going to be bringing them forward to do an introduction and a badge pinning. So you'll see that on next week's council meeting. So we have those 2 new firefighters that are started, and then we're also in the process of the 3 that were approved in the budget. We've moved ahead with those. We want to get those started as soon as we can. So we've selected the 3 individuals. One's another person from Boeing, and one is a firefighter. Currently, we got Boeing. We have a firefighter up in Getchell, where we've got a couple other people from. And then we have a woman, Martha, who is currently a wildland firefighter, but she has been a city firefighter in her past. So those are the 3 that we're looking at. They're in backgrounds, medical, psychs, all going to happen in the next month and a half, and we're going full steam. As long as we don't have any issues, we're looking at having them start that first Monday in January, which I believe is the 6th. The sooner we get them on board, the sooner they can start counting for staffing. And so we've been, with the administration's approval, been moving forward on filling those 3 positions.
Fabulous.
The next one on there is the engine. Where are we at with the new engine? I had DC Brown has been working on that. He's been working with the salesman on that. Unfortunately, it's been delayed till January. Unfortunately, that's how the fire engine business has been going lately. It doesn't happen very often. They actually get them on time. We did talk at the time of the contract if we wanted to put penalties in there, but it was just not something that anybody was doing at that time. None of the vendors were doing that just because of the delays from COVID. They're still trying to get caught up. So right now, the final completion is supposed to be in December, or we go out for a final visit, and then it should be delivered in January. That was the last update I got from the salesman, who's our contact. And then the last one I put on there was just because it's coming up is aid car. Our aid car, our backup aid car right now, based on the replacement schedule here at the city, is supposed to be replaced in 2025. And so Don Harris has reached out to us to start the plans for that one already so that we can get it ordered, depending on if we're going to go the route of getting a new one, which again could be a year to a 18-month delay, depending. I think I heard it was going to be about a year to build one, or to have it re-chassied like we did similar to the last one. DC Brown's put together a committee to look at the options and decide which is the path we want to go. They got some visits scheduled before the end of the year. And our goal is to have it to by dawn by the end of the year, which direction we want to go, whether we're going to go the re-chassis version, or if we're going to go the version of get a brand new aid car. I think that was the things that we wanted to cover, just kind of get an update where you're at. If there's anything that you had talked to Chief Brown about, he didn't pass on to me, just let me know and I'll try and fill it in. But I believe those were the kind of the topics of where we're sitting on some outstanding things.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you. I would open up for questions. However, I'm going to ask if you have questions, send those over to Chief Bailey so that he can respond to them and so that we can get to the legislative priorities. But thank you for the update.
Are you opening the EOC for the high wind warning?
Not at this time. We're monitoring it. We could if we need to. I sent out a briefing to city staff today, and there'll be another briefing tomorrow to see if the weather forecast has changed. Right now, I think there was an email that Drew sent out. Did that go to council also? Or did that just go to staff? That you sent earlier this afternoon?
So I believe it was sent directly to council.
Okay. So that's the most current information we have. There'll be another update at 11 tomorrow, and then we'll batten down the hatches and go from there.
All right. Thank you much, Chief. All right. I want to move on to our legislative priorities, and to help move us along, I think that Councilmember Johnson made a very good point, and is we can get this onto one page, and we've seen a couple other cities squeeze everything into one page. And to that end, I think the thing that we need to do is to boil it down to a topic. It could be a bill, and the second part to it is, what do we want included in the bill? And maybe a third sentence as to, supporting piece to it. Because the reality is we want these to be seen. We want it to be prioritized, and we may want to just take out some of what we have in here and still have the intent there. I attended as well as Mayor Ross today and got the AWC, and you may have seen theirs. It was all put in one sheet, but then there was a backup sheet for public safety, and it was a two-sided thing with more information. And that's something that maybe I want to entertain. The idea is we try to get the big ideas on one sheet, and then backup is something that we don't have to adopt this coming week. We can build on that if need be, or if there needs to be further context behind that. So with that, I'm opening it up for discussion, and I'm going to start off with Councilmember Cotton, because you had a very good point on the opioid settlement, because the settlement's done, but there's other things that need to happen to support. So Councilmember Cotton.
Well, and that's kind of on 2 points. As far as for the legislative priorities, and I had sent out emails to folks, the thing that I wanted to see for the legislative priority would be about the naloxone being allowed for the school kids.
So you're asking for greater flexibility to allow to get it into more situations to be readily available.
Yeah, so it'd just be amending House Bill 1956 that's already on file to, and there's a half dozen other states that have already passed this. Like, I think I included in my first email the Colorado's wording for theirs to allow not only the kids that get the training, they have to go through the training, and then it allows the school districts to private schools, whatever teaching facility, to, if they've gone through the approved training, to be able to carry Narcan in their backpack. I'm assuming the schools may have to do something like with parents who would object to that or not object to that, but that would be something through the PTSAs or something. So,
Bear, do you have any thoughts? Sorry.
Well, I'm just concerned about, have you talked to like our school district, I guess, or Schoenfeld, the superintendent Schoenfeld? Because this is kind of putting a lot of onus on them. And if they don't agree with it, then I can't imagine that we would want, city council would go for something that our public school is not going for.
although they are going for the training,
Okay.
they are doing the trainings. It's just that the difference is, I was at the training at the high school on the 6th of this month, where parents were going through the educational course that's now being taught in the students' CPR classes, the Stop the Bleed. We've added in the opioid education for them. We just can't hand out the free Narcan. So we had the parents training session on the 6th, and I have to say, I have not talked to him face to face about this, but it was, all the staff was there along with the parents, go through the training. And the big question that everybody had was, well, why can't the kids carry this in their backpack with they have with them all the time? So no, I did not ask him specifically about that. I'd be happy to present the information to him. But the other part of that is the school buses, which are technically part of the school district's staff and property, they can't carry it on the buses. They're not trained in it. So that was the other part of it, was, you know, being able to step up that training as well. And the goal being to try and save lives, obviously.
Councilmember Christensen, do you have any input?
Yeah, I can absolutely see the benefit in having that go forward. I do think that we should probably reach out, and I don't know whether it would be just to the superintendent or to the school board as well, because I suspect that they would also need to weigh in on that before adopting a full resolution as to whether we want that on the city's legislative priorities. I don't know offhand if the school board does their own. That also may be helpful to know if there's anything in particular that they're going after with the legislators. But I do see the value in having that. It's just a question of whether the school district would be supportive and whether they'd have concerns about liability or things like that associated with it.
Yeah, it
I know
wouldn't.
there's Good Samaritan laws and things like that, but there
Yeah.
also may be some things that some issues I would not be sensitive to from their side.
Yes, very, yes. Although them having the training in their schools seems like, you know, they're supportive of that. So, but yes, absolutely. It's good to dot the i's and cross the t's and make sure. And I have actually talked with several of the school board members about those kinds of things too, and they seem supportive of it, but not as a voting type of a thing. So but I will follow up on that.
I think because time is of the essence on putting the legislative agenda together, other cities are a little ahead of us. You know, if it seems appropriate, I could support going forward with that. We support HB 1956 and also increasing access to Narcan or whatever. Keeping it very generic because
I
it's
mean,
not.
that could be something we do at a later time, just as the council supporting it and sending it on to the representatives. There's no money attached to it. We're not asking for any monies to be, you know, sent to the city for it or anything along that line. It's just strictly getting the representatives to amend that bill to include that, okay, you're saying they can do the training, can they, you know, carry the Narcan, you know, and have that, that House bill, you know, be approved. And again, there's many other states that have done it. And so it's kind of getting on the bandwagon to you know, get this taken care of. The other side of things, the opioid settlement funds, that's not a legislative priority asking for anything. This was more to start the ball rolling, since the county has already set up the opioid abatement council, that for us to be starting to spend the monies, we in compliance with the MOU need to reach out to the community for their input on that. So I wanted to start a discussion with staff and administration about how do we do that? Can we do it with a survey on the website? Can we do it with this or that, or public hearing, or, you know, that type of thing? So again, that's not a legislative priority. That's a separate type of thing. So.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. We can come back to that. We've got several bullets that are under public safety. And I guess the point is, do we keep it or do we remove any of these bullets so that we can focus more on fewer issues than many issues? The first one's police and fire personnel adding funding tools and resources to support recruitment, retention, including but not limited to updating the public safety sales tax. I think that one may come under our other one, that's how to expand revenue for the city. Councilmember Christensen.
Yeah, when we talked at one of the other ones, I think that we talked about striking that since we went forward with the public sales safety,
Right. Okay.
the safe.
Would you be okay with us striking that entire bullet point? Or do you want to keep any of it?
I would personally like to see additional funding tools and resources still come. I know that it's still an
Okay.
ongoing issue, especially for the smaller municipalities. And
Okay.
it would be helpful to be able to add more
Retain.
folks, both retain and to add more folks into the system as well. And at least
Okay.
my conversations with the chief, that was still a priority on his end as well.
Okay. Okay,
And it could be really beneficial, especially against with retention, with deepening the bench and then with reducing overtime.
okay. Right, thank you. Next one is juvenile access to the law. And this was a recommendation coming from the chief. Yes,
I would personally vote to keep that in as well. I know that
Okay.
the way that it's currently structured, it has been giving the police department additional difficulties in terms of being able to investigate things like threats that are happening in the school district. So I think that that's an important one to keep in place as
Okay.
well.
all right. We struck police pursuit because that was, the next one's the opioid settlement disbursement. That's already happened.
Well, that's when I said we could, that's not a legislative priority.
Okay, so we can strike that without losing sight of it. And the other one was additional funding for school safety. I think that one we've discussed and kind of agreed upon, if I recall. Yes, Councilmember Christensen.
I think it would be important to have and it would be helpful, but we may need to kind of figure out more what that would look like so that we can have a concrete ask when we go to the legislators.
Okay. Okay,
I'm happy to hear more, but I
Is
feel
this
like we may need a
school-
more developed plan.
School safety being a very broad topic, are we
Yeah.
trying to narrow that
Mm.
to like the information presentation we had today?
so more like safe streets, is that what we're talking about?
Or was that the safety, like putting a speed limits, cameras in front of the schools or?
Okay, question mark. then. Mayor?
I think there's one item that we've had on in the past was the behavioral health funding to
Mm,
continue to help pay for our
yeah,
mental health specialist.
Yes.
yeah,
And we've received funding over the last 2 years, each
Yeah.
year for her. So it'd be great to see if we can get additional funding this year.
yeah, I think that's a very good point. Agreement? Yeah. Okay. All right. And then quickly, this kind of falls in two areas, I guess. And that's the funding for Highway 18. I think part of that was mitigated by the defeat of the proposition. But I think as well, here's the big issue. And that is the state's priorities when it comes to fish passageways. And we totally agree that it needs to be addressed, but it is onerous. And one of the thoughts out there is to get the tribes to come back to the table and say, okay, 65% of our budget, state's budget, WashDOT, is going to fish passageways. It means maintenance is being put aside and scheduled projects have to be stretched out. And it's all because of fish passageways have to be completed by 2030. $3 billion a year, the state budget is going to passageway, 1 million for preservation, 1 million for planned maintenance. And they're coming back and asking now that 3 billion become 4 billion from the state. And we know that it's crimping things, including the completion of what needs to be done on SR 18. And it comes back to the safety thing. How do we change that dialogue? How do we help the state make it a priority to to continue to negotiate and extend the 2030 deadline, because it's really making it difficult for the other things that impact the safety of our residents more so. So food for thought. And we can come back and talk about that at council next week, right? With that, we're at 5:56, and because we're being pressured by the next group, no, not really, because I'm on it. I will call for the adjournment. Is there any dissent?
That's good.
Okay, we stand adjourned at 5:56.